Yeah.
and get as much out of him as possible. And then they're going to have to cheese Nergios.
Yeah. Well, Dystar has already lost against Ike, and has lost fairly convincingly.
Yeah,
so...
Ike versus Dystar. I think either of them against Dystar is good odds, but Ike would be the higher odds. I don't think Ike's going to lose to Dystar at all.
Well, we'll see what they decide to do. We're getting the invite here to Yonsu, and let's find out exactly who wants to
Yonsu sounds like a better map for Snood if you like Bowler Knight, because that does not seem like a very suiting map for Ike.
Not especially. But let's see who they decide to send. It is... Ike. Alright. So he's evidently got some kind of build up his sleeve for this one. And I mean, he did massacre Dystar last time, so...
Wonder if Ike means something in Norwegian.
I should look that up. It'd be very exciting.
Sounds very cute, so it probably means something heinous or something.
Probably. Ike Index Mundi. Ike. It's a place.
Ah, I wonder if that's where he's from.
Possibly. It's near a thing that I think says Briskred. Or something like that. My Norwegian is not quite that great.
Silly Scandinavian languages with their dots above letters.
Oh, God. I went to a place years ago that I still can't pronounce, even after years of trying. And that was in Sweden. It was up north.
I think the best time I've ever had listening to the news is when that big eruption happened in Iceland.
Ah, yes.
Near that city, and listening to all the American newscasters trying to pronounce whatever that city was called. It was fantastic.
It's just beautiful. Oh, wow. Apparently, Ike is near a city called Ramsteinkrede, which actually sounds very German and scary, but apparently not. That's awesome. God, we have so many boring names for towns over here.
Well, they're boring because we're used to them. Ramsteinkrede probably sounds pretty boring to them.
That's a fair point. Admittedly, it's also boring because you stole most of your town names from England, and we were boring to begin with, so...
Yeah. All our town names are like thousands of years old because of you guys, so...
Yeah.
It just can't be exciting anymore.
Unfortunate. That, and you just stick a new before most of them as well, which never really helps. It's like, I've been to York. It's not even Old York, it's just York. It's an old town with lots of slanty buildings. That's really about as far as it goes. Alright, here we go. So, let's see what happens with this one. I am really interested to see whether Ike can continue the hype train. I am on the Ike hype train right now. And I'm hoping it's going to take me all the way to the end of the line, but we will see. To the southwest position on Yonsu. Playing for Carnegie Sports and Team Norway. In the red trunks playing Protoss, it is Ike. Versus his opponent to the northeast position, who's currently up one game for his team in this best-of-5 team series. Playing for Team Poland. In the blue trunks, playing Tevin, it's Millennium's Dystar.
I wonder what Ike's going to do on here, because this is a much more aggressive map than Frost, which is where his two previous PVTs were played. And on there he did, you know, the Gateway Expansion Forge, or a Gateway Nexus Robo Forge, Twilight Council, and then adding 3 gateways, all off 2 Stalkers build. If he does that on here, I really feel like he dies to a lot of things. It's just such a small map. The natural is a little bit more wide open, and the ramp is very exposed to any kind of elevator shenanigans. It would be incredibly risky if he opens up with the same kind of build here. On the other hand, Dystar, he's pretty robotic. I'm not sure if he would actually respond properly in order to take advantage of it and kill it. Because if he does the same kind of 3 barracks build he did in their previous game, he can defend that on here just as well as he can on Frost. He would need to do some kind of quick starport build to really punish it, in my opinion.
Totally. Well, let's see if Ike has another build up his sleeve beyond that massive amounts of greed. Scouts coming out from both players, and no doubt Dystar would like to know what's going on. Try to get a read and see whether or not it's the same build coming at him. The concern that I've got whenever you run into a player like this that plays just in this ridiculously greedy fashion, I think perhaps the player who's playing against them has a tendency to overreact and say, oh, alright, well, he's playing greedy, so I should punish it. It's something you mentioned earlier, actually, saying, oh, well, he shouldn't be able to do that, so let's punish it. But they don't punish them quite hard enough, and then they end up dying horribly.
The bigger thing is they often don't commit to it early enough. Like, with a lot of Protoss greediness right now in both matchups, PvZ and PvT, but PvT in particular, it's really hard to just like to play reactively and to actually punish the greed because they're so powerful defensively with force field and all of the mothership core abilities, plus just the generic strength and cost efficiency of their units. It's really hard to do that. So you almost can't just see it and then react to it with an attack. You have to see it and react to it with your own greed, because they're just so good defensively. You have to really be committing to an all-in early on to actually punish it. And I start actually scouting around, looking out for proxies. So he's not pigeonholing Ike. He's not saying, okay, this guy is only going to fast expand. He's still looking out for the other possibilities. So that's good, smart play from him. But in the meantime, Ike has actually gotten into the main of Dystar and sees absolutely everything, so he knows exactly what's going on. And he actually sees the fast factory, which could be pretty crucial. That definitely says that there is the possibility for a very quick drop, whether it be Widow Mines, Marines, Hellions, even some kind of elevator or quick attack tactics.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a little bit different from the last time we saw these guys go at it. Oh, nice pickup there from Dystar to grab the probe so it doesn't get out, but last time we saw Dystar throw down 3 more barracks and not even consider the factory and then just outright lose. I think it makes more sense just to play a solid style against Ike. So far, well, Ike is actually shaking it up here. He's adding 2 more gateways, which is very unusual for him.
I like that, though. I think that's a very smart response here. I don't think doing the same build that he had done would be at all safe on this map, especially against a quick Starport build, which he scouted. I mean, he could have still dropped the Robo. Getting that quick Observer out is also quite good against Widow Mine drops. But going up with 3 gateways, he's going to have quite a few units. He's going to be very ready for that. And if Dystar messes up, if he loses too much trying to commit to aggression against a player he thinks is being greedy, then 3-gate can easily transition into a counterattack. And we already see a pylon coming up from Ike further out on the map to set up for that possible counterattack. So I think this is really smart play from Ike.
Yep. We should also point out that I believe Ike's first name is actually Ike, which might be why it's called Ike.
That could be it.
But I still believe that it is a mystical town near Ramstein-Krede, because that just sounds better.
Maybe he's Ike from Ike, and then it's just like a given name.
Absolutely.
Oh, and Dystar actually finds the pylon, shuts that down, and he killed the probe as well.
Yeah.
So there is no available warp-in and no potential available warp-in for Ike out on the map until he sends another probe out. But he is putting up a Robo and a Forge, so it looks like he's falling back to plan B. He did not commit much at all to the warp gate tactics, which might actually be a mistake, because we have a full medevac coming out, as well as 7 or 8 Marines out on the map. So this is actually a kind of scary attack, and there's only 2 Stalkers and a Zealot there. The Mothership Core can compensate for a lot, but maybe not that much.
Well, he does almost have enough energy for 2 photon overcharges, so if it decides to be a double-pronged aggression, then he may be able to pull it off regardless. I am still a little bit worried, though. This can go wrong. Dystar is actually dropping on the top of the ramp here to give himself some vision, but he is gonna lose the medevac! And he does so and loses even a unit in it. The Zealots get their hands on that as well, but up the ramp he goes, and that is a very, very, very late, but apparently, ultimately, it doesn't matter in any way, force field.
Really nice focus fire on the dropship, just good, or the medevac, just good solid reaction from Ike. It was kind of a weak attack from, sorry, what?
I was going to say that the defense from Ike was just great. I mean, he lost, what, 2 Zealots, and that was it?
2 Zealots, yeah, he didn't actually even lose a sentry. He is about to lose the probes to a Widow Mine down there, though.
Uh-oh. Ooh, 2. Okay.
2 probes. But good reaction is still there from Ike. He recognized that it was coming. He saw it, or he had it timed out, and he saved a good chunk of probes. He's really just playing this quite well in general. And here comes the Robo Bay. He's got +1 going. He's just headed up towards that macro game once again. And he definitely came out the better of that. Dystar invested quite a bit in that attack. That was a medevac, I don't know, maybe like 12, 13 Marines, a Widow Mine, and delayed the rest of his production and upgrades quite a bit.
For 2 Zealots and 2 probes, which is definitely not worth it.
Not worthwhile. Plus he lost the medevac, so that really limits his continued harass abilities.
That's very true. He's building a couple more, of course, but they're going to start on fairly low energy, and he might want to keep them at home, because who knows when something will come in his direction. As it stands, Ike's shown no wish whatsoever to get aggressive, but once he's got his extended thermal lance and a couple of Colossus, that's going to change a little bit. It also means that Viking production for Dystar is going to be slightly delayed. Losing 1 medevac means, hey, you know, I want to get a decent number of medevacs out, so I can only really build 1 at a time. And funnily enough, he's been building all of this without a reactor. He's only just getting his reactor done now for the swap over there with the factory.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate for him as well. Especially because he's seen Ike play a decent amount now. He should know he's very, very Colossus heavy. Yeah, getting those Vikings out should be an absolute priority. So I'm surprised he doesn't have a reactor on that starport. a little bit earlier, although he may not have had the resources to really run a reactor starport just yet. He's pretty low on gas, trying to catch up on upgrades after that kind of tech-heavy opening. May not have actually been a possibility for him just yet. That's kind of the downside of the build. He didn't. An empty medevac actually flying out on the map. I'm
Is this
not
for
sure.
scouting? I mean, it's got to be just for looking for pylons, right?
I would imagine so. Maybe he just doesn't realize it's empty. And he is bringing it back towards his army now, so he was probably just looking for pylons, which is a pretty smart play from him there.
Yeah.
So many Terrans just don't even think of that and then lose to just prolonged Zealot warp in harassment as they try and attack. Looks like Ike is thinking about a third base. Dice are moving out with really good timing to make sure that doesn't happen. However, 2 Colossus on the field and no Vikings actually with the army. So he definitely cannot attack, and he has to be pretty careful about engaging at all.
Well, one thing we have seen from Ike is that his force field control is not that great, so maybe he lets the 11 Marauders through and then they murder everything, but aside from that, it seems unlikely, so... Not sure how that Marine got up there. I think he had a leisurely jog up there while the rest of the army drew it up and got a little bit of scouting information, did spot the Twilight Council, but yeah, not hugely important.
A drop coming in, but Ike is right on top of that. Actually, 2 on top of that. His entire army is there. He's going to actually have to cancel his 3rd Nexus, most likely. A little bit of an overreaction from him there, but the first real misstep he's made.
Yep. Single Zealot.
Oh, we didn't cancel.
Didn't cancel, wow.
That's not ideal.
No, that's not good at all. And without Blink, he has no way to chase that drop down, so... no, not Elky. Ike is starting to fall apart a little bit. He is bringing in the Stalkers around the side, and he may be able to get one of those medevacs, and he does, which is nice, but if it had units in, it would have been even nicer. Drop coming around the back, though, into the main here, but there is a cannon. Nicely. Oh! The full drop went off there. He lost the whole lot.
That's pretty bad, especially because it looks like Ike kind of wants to attack. He kind of wants to do a
He's got 3 Colossus, he should. Yeah.
And losing a medevac full of units and then losing 2 more medevacs full of units for no reason whatsoever.
Wow.
Wow. Dystar kind of dropping the ball a bit here. He has some units back at home, but he realizes he's in trouble. He's putting up 2 panic bunkers, getting a bunch of Vikings, getting as many Vikings as he can. He's actually producing 4 at once, which is a good call against Ike. But losing that many units, that's just inexcusable.
It's pretty brutal. Yeah. Army supply is actually dead even at this point, but it shouldn't have been. And the Protoss should have been on the smaller army, but that was not the case at all. And right now, unfortunately, it's looking like more die than star at this stage.
That it is. There are now 4 Colossus out on the field for Ike. No tech transition just yet, no charge slot, nothing besides blink and continued upgrades. So looking like he's sticking on that Stalker Colossus composition that he really likes for quite some time. If he were scouting, his observer does see the double starport, so I'm surprised he's not making a switch into more Templar base tech just yet. Sticking on Colossus for too long is going to be really dangerous for Assist, because there's going to be a lot of Vikings on the field shortly. Already quite a few, in fact. Yeah. But he has no medevacs. He lost at least 4 medevacs so far this game, pretty sloppily, and he's been doing very heavy Viking production, so he has only 2 medevacs for his entire 150 supply army. And man, that's pretty problematic.
You threw a couple of storms in there, that would become ridiculous. Like, the amount of damage you could do, plus stim and then Colossus attacks, the whole army would just be wiped out incredibly fast. And it looks like he's figured that one out too. He's throwing down a Dark Shrine and a Templar Archives because why the hell not? Let's get all the tech right.
Charge that as well. Yes.
Yeah. Looking pretty good, although it is giving Dystar the possibility of actually building medevacs, so it's giving him some time here. He doesn't seem willing to do that right now. He's building 11 Marines and millions of Vikings at this point. He's actually got double starport up, but he's not building medevacs. He doesn't quite have the gas.
Yeah, which is weird because he's running on 6 gas. He has started up his ghost tech, so perhaps it's that. He actually has oh, pardon me. He actually has the army as well, so he's starting up his 2nd tier of upgrades. So he's putting a lot of gas into other things, but I really think medevac should be a bit of a priority. But you can't really blame him for the continued Viking production, because we're up to 5 Colossus now. And Ike seems to stop at 5, but until now, he has had just continuous Colossus production, so you kind of have to match that with the Vikings. But now Templar beginning to be morphed in, a Warp Prism coming out, so it looks like Ike is going into late-game Protoss harassment mode, getting ready to take his 4th base down at the bottom right as well. And Dystar is approaching a max. He's running on 3 bases. He has decent upgrades going. He has ghosts included. So this is your late game Terran army kicking in. Still only on 2 medevacs though, and no more in production. That's just not acceptable. That's way too few.
Yeah, that's actually ridiculous, the fact that he's almost maxed out and he's only on 2 medevacs. I don't know. He's still building Vikings, continuing to build them. I mean, he's going to go up to 18, which, yeah, it's going to kill the Colossus pretty fast, but then what is it going to do?
He's just going to sit there and watch as the Zealot Archon Remax just completely obliterates his red health army.
Yeah.
Three Colossus swipes, and the entire army is just worthless now.
Yeah. Alright, the engagement's going to happen in the center of the map right here. The charge, let's get in. They spot the number of medevacs, and that's probably causing a bit of a chuckle here from Ike, although he doesn't want to engage with his Colossus for fairly obvious reasons. He's drawing him back, spreading him out, pushing a single Colossus forward. Alright, Ike on the defensive right now. This is a very tense situation. He's morphing in it. I love that. Great move. Oh, but the scan goes down. He spots which ones are fake, and he even takes out the observer as well. So that was a nice little move there by Dystar. Didn't get fooled by the hallucinations. However, here comes the push. Oh, looking for the blink pickoff. Takes out one. Where are the EMPs? We're not seeing them right now. He's not using any EMPs. The EMPs finally go down on some of the Colossus. It looks like he managed to take out some of the Templar as well. Of course, the Colossus die very, very fast, and suddenly, will Ike be able to break through here without the storms? It's really close, one way or the other. Oh, here come the Zealot reinforcements, and there's some more storm, and that's the GG.
Those were huge storms. They got all of the Vikings. That meant that, because basically when you make that many Vikings, you're looking to clean up the Colossus as fast as possible and then land them to get a lot of additional ground DPS. He didn't have that option because all his Vikings were dead because of all the storms on them. And then, of course, the lack of medevacs. His army was just so squishy that even though the Colossus fell pretty quickly, the damage they did and the time they were up was more than enough to weaken it up. And then the gateway units were easily able to overtake and clean it up. Yeah. And he was pretty all in at that point. There was 4 base Templar, Zealot upgrades, everything. Just your normal late game Protoss army coming at him behind it. And Dystar, I don't know. He could have given it another try. He did almost trade armies, but I think the biggest thing there was really poor ghost usage. He didn't get a single EMP off on the Templar. I'm not sure what he was really doing with those.
Yeah, I think the last EMP did wing one of them, and I think that may have done a little bit there, but not much. I mean, it was a bit of a weird engagement because you'd think the storms would go down the army. They actually went down on the Vikings. And then the EMPs didn't go off, but the last one kind of winged a few Templar, and then the reinforcement Templar came in behind that later on in the fight. So it was a little difficult to tell which way it was going, but yeah, Ike managed to make the push there.
To an extent, Ike actually forced that to happen. It was kind of nicely done by him. What he did was he blunked his
He
blunked his his stalkers forward to actually chase down the ghosts and isolate them from the rest of the army, and then instead opted to use his Templar as his anti-air to try and protect the Colossus, just spending all his storms. And what that did was that zoned out the ghosts, prevented them from getting a lot of good EMPs off on the meat of the army.
Yeah. And
that was really, really smart there, because without that many medevacs, he was pretty okay losing his Colossus as long as the rest of his army was still there, because Warp Gate units do pretty okay against Bio as long as there's not a whole lot of medevacs supporting them. I'm not sure how much of that was conscious and how much of it just played out, but it ended up working out really, really well for him. And if it was all planned out, he's kind of a genius.
It was nicely done, I got to admit. That was really, really good play. Ike continues to show that, but the question is, can he continue to do that against tougher opponents? Dystar, clearly the... it's not much of an insult to say that he is the weakest alongside Nurtio and Mana, who are very good, accomplished players. The question is, who do they send out against him? I don't necessarily think they want to throw Nurtio out here. But then again, Mana's also lost a PvP to Ike before, so this is actually a bit tough for them.
PvZ does seem to be his weakness, but Nurtio's lost his EVP thus far today, and not in particularly impressive fashion. It wasn't like a close back and forth, well, he just outplayed me kind of game. It was like, well, what was Nurtio doing there? That looked pretty bad kind of thing. And against a player like Ike, I think you're really going to have to outplay him. Even if it did look like his weaker matchup, he does not look like he's going to be a pushover at all. So, I don't know. I think sending out Mana may be the better option. I think you really want to keep Nurtio in reserve to try and hold off Snoot. I'll try and beat Snoot at the end of it. But Mana already lost to him too. I don't know. This guy is honestly kind of scary. He seems very good and hard to deal with, so I'm not sure what they should really do about it.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's impressive. You can complain about Protoss all you damn well please, I suppose, and no doubt people will and say, oh, it's not impressive, he's just playing Protoss. He's playing Protoss very, very well. And he is doing so in a fashion that's very well calculated. And he is taking good fights. He has solid build orders, and he evidently isn't just a one-trick pony either. He's definitely very Colossus heavy. That we've certainly noticed. That's his favored unit there. But he doesn't do the same build every time. He's not just a one-trick pony. So far, considering this guy has taken 4 maps in this tournament, that's pretty good. That's hard to argue with that ratio. It's currently 4-1.
He's taken them in pretty impressive fashion too. Like he's making good decisions. He has good macro. I would say his control has been the one letdown, but even at times that has looked quite solid. His decision making, his build orders are all very good. He does not look like a generic, like dumb Protoss who's getting some lucky wins because his race is strong. He looks like quite a solid player who happens to play Protoss.
Indeed, and there are some of those, as it turns out.
Yes, there are.
All right, will we be taking a break?
It looks like
possibly not. Yeah, they're gonna send Nurture out. All right.
That's interesting, and it's on Derelict Watcher.
Well, Fred Gao, his manager, actually put out a tweet a little while ago that I believe said, "Dear Nurture, please stop throwing ZVPs." We'll see if we can do that.
I would say that. Well, I don't think it's really going out on a limb here to say that Aiki definitely seems like the much better player than... Who was the Spanish Protoss? Revenge?
Majestic.
Majestic. Not Revenge at all. That's
Revenge
not even close.
is a Korean.
Was terrible.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say Aiki is definitely the much more impressive player than Majestic. Thus far, and Majestic did manage to beat Nurture in pretty comfortable fashion, even after an early game disadvantage. Nurture just looked kind of lost there. He made Roach Hydra Corruptor and then threw it away, and that was it. Did not look like a very clean, polished CVP at all.
Not exactly.
And nothing compared to Slivko. Like, Slivko, maybe not as recognized a player as Nurture, but his ZVP looked very on point. He was very on top of everything. The decision to go Broodlord there I thought was a little bit questionable, but he made it work. And it definitely looked like he had a better handle on the matchup than Nurture did in his ZVP. So the fact that Aiki lost to him, I don't think that's particularly telling for the outcome of this match. I'm not particularly worried for him that he's going to get outclassed by Nurture.
No. Well, let's see what happens then, because I am intrigued. Will we see Nurture throw another ZVP, as his manager claims? Also, by the way, Nurture's response to that is, "Dear Fred Gao, why is David Kim not talking to me? Regards, your player."
I like Nurture.
Yes, we all do. I think this would be a far less entertaining game if Nurture was not playing it. So, to the southwest position on Derelict Watcher. In the blue trunks, playing for Team Norway. From Carnage Esports, it is Aiki. Versus his opponent to the northeast position in the red trunks for Poland. The captain of Team Poland. Although, at this point, not really the captain of ZVP, so we're going to need to see a bit of a turnaround in this matchup for him. In the red trunks playing Zerg, Team Acer's Nurture.
Looks like Gateway expansion once again. This is the same way he opened, including the placement of the pylon, the gateway wall in above his ramp. Same way he opened up against Slivko. That game, he played very, very generically. Just gateway expansion into Stargate, into a third base, into Protoss Ball. That's pretty much as generic as you can get for ZV or for PvZ. And Nurture, of course, on the other hand, opening up with his normal pool first. Nothing too exciting out of either player just yet.
How horribly disappointing.
Yeah, Nurture should just 6-pooled. Why not?
Well, it would have meant that we got to go to bed quicker. That would have been nice. This has actually been a very long series up to this point. We've been doing this for what?
It's been a
hours?
pretty long day. We started at 8, it's now 4. It's
8 hours.
It's 8.5 hours now.
Yep. We might have to speed up day 2, I think. Or either that or we could just hope for a lot more 3-0s, which we might see, I don't know.
Yeah, this has been, we were talking about that, this has been surprisingly close. There's been lots of 5-game matches.
Yeah.
In a group of teams that I really didn't think would be that well matched. I thought it would be much more one-sided.
Yeah, I thought it would have been Russia through first and then Poland second. That was my prediction, but it could still be, but it was a lot closer than I would have expected it to be. Obviously, the Spain 3-0 was a bit predictable, but outside of that...
The important part is I figured it would be Russia first and Poland second, but everything would be very one-sided except for maybe Russia versus Poland. I thought it would be all kind of stomps.
Yeah.
Not at all the case.
No, not at all. And it's worked out pretty well for these guys up to this point, proving there's definitely a talent pool in Europe.
Oh, certainly. I don't think anyone would question that. There's so many names on the European ladder who anyone international, myself included, would be like, what? And then you see them play a couple of games and you're like, oh, that guy's actually pretty good. And
Yeah.
then it just happens over and over and over.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. It's kind of terrifying. Ling's on the way in, and there's actually nothing blocking that ramp. If Nurture had realized that, he could have gone right into the base there.
He would rather kill pylons. That seems to be a habit of his. He's very big on killing pylons.
Yes. Forcing cancel pylons. Little shattered crystals of dreams on the ground.
Quick Stargate once again, and still no units at all. Nurture could actually just run in there and see that if he wanted to.
It's pretty comical, really. He doesn't know, though. Ike is cutting so many corners at that point.
Well, that is a hallmark of a good RTS player in general.
Know when
every
to cut
race.
corners.
Yeah, you just play as risky, as greedy as you possibly can, right up until the point where it would start to cost you. If you know or think you can get away with it, and you can, then it's just an advantage for you.
You absolutely might as well. And he got away with it. He did. He's building a sentry now, just in case, 20 Lings come knocking on the front door, and you can't kill that with one Mothership Core. As good as the Mothership Core might be, it's not that good. And we've got a Stargate and the double gateway, so the same kind of style into Phoenix that we saw against Slivko.
Immediate Phoenix. If you asked me for a generic, good, solid PvZ build, I would say that this is it. You get your 5 Phoenix out right away, you go into Colossus, you take a third base, and then you macro from there. 5 Phoenix it gives you good harassment potential, it gives you good map control, good everything. And there's nothing it's very weak against. It's not going to get you a free win, but more often than not, it's going to secure you some kind of an advantage, and it's definitely not going to give you a disadvantage.
Yeah.
This is just a very good generic build. Got that Forge coming up, so he's not going to be looking for any kind of gateway pressure. There's no pylons or probes out on the map or anything. He's just going to be using those Phoenix for harassment and map control, getting his upgrades going, and head into a macro game, which seems to be where he's most comfortable.
2 more gas taking down the bottom there. A couple of Spore Crawlers coming out from Nurture. Like, well, it's a decent way of dealing with Phoenix, and also just to make sure there's no Dark Templar shenanigans going on. Roach Warren on the way up for our Zerg player as well. And now, I really want to see Nurture play a late game ZVP and see where he goes with it. Because the last time we saw it, it was kind of disappointing. It was really strange, mid-game nonsense that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, I was about to say, that wasn't late game PvZ or ZVP at all. That was what I do when I don't want to make swarm hosts because it leads to boring games. And I don't know, it doesn't really work. Like going Corruptor and doing any kind of flare timing, you have to be really, really far ahead, or your opponent has to be playing really, really greedy for it to actually have any chance to work. Against a player like this, and even a player like Majestic, it's a very big risk to take, and something that a player of Nurture's caliber really does not need to do. I mean, we saw Targa have some success with it against Titan earlier on, but he got to be very, very greedy early on, and he had a very good composition against what Titan had, and Titan didn't scout and didn't respond. Generally speaking, those mid-game timings, those are a really, really bad thing to do.
Well, Ike picks off 3 drones and doesn't lose a Phoenix, so nice little bit of harass in the main base there. As it stands, Nurture sits comfortably on 3 bases. Hydralisk Den is on the way up, and a Colossus Den has already started here for Ike. God damn it!
And it does look like Nurture kind of wants to do that kind of Roach Hydraling based timing. A Hydra Den that quick, he's still only on 3 hatcheries. He does not have any kind of surplus of drones by any means. And he's making a lot of Zerglings, and he's getting a Spire. Now, the Spire, the Hydra Den, and the fact that he hasn't made any Roaches means that could be like a Hydraling timing into Mutaswitch. That's very popular. Or it was very popular for a while amongst a lot of Zergs, particularly Korean Zergs. I think that was popularized by Dongrigu. It's less so now because Protoss have just gotten better versus it. They figured out Colossus timing to hold off the Hydra Link, and then they just make a bunch of extra Phoenix, and they beat you really easily. Oh, but it looks like some Zerglings actually going in for harass on the 3rd next. Not complete yet. He definitely could force a cancel on this, and he actually could surround these units. And maybe
see how good these force fields are. And in fact, I think he's just going to let it go. Never mind. I was going to say, all right, well, let's see if he can force field that off, but apparently not. I think Ike just wants to make Nurture pay as much as possible for this, and he's not going to be able to make him pay. Pylons, the mortal enemy of Nurture, being destroyed by the thousands here.
And Ike's actually opting to go for it here. That's not a good decision at all. He's going to lose all these units, and he can't afford to lose sentries with units on the way. Nurchio actually making a really smart decision here, not building any Hydras, realizing that he found an opening with his Zerglings, so he has no need to invest in gas to actually make damage happen. So he's just saving up all that gas for a huge Muta switch in a second here. His Spire has actually Corruptors.